Hello, Cedar here, and I'll be reading the next story, or the last story in the Tiger Rock book, which is called Bleeding Heart. It's quite interesting, I suppose, the name that is. I really can't think of anything what this is supposed to be about, but who knows? I'll bet it's gonna be a good one. So far, the stories were pretty good. So I'll just start reading now. Her name was Daisy Sayland. She was the coolest girl in Bayer High School, to Danny Schollenberg anyway, and she was walking straight towards him. Well, walking down the school hallway where he happened to be standing by his locker. When she walked, her blondish brown hair swayed at her shoulders. Her eyelashes flooded over the golden eyes. Her eyebrows were perfectly arched. Her face was heart-shaped. He knew... Wait, heart-shaped? Does that mean she has an indent on the top? Like a widow's peak? Probably not. He knew because he'd sketched her a bunch of times. Oh, an artist, I see. Not that he knew anything about that. Daisy never gave him the time of day. He was super cool, and he was, well, average. He often considered himself a neutral shade on the color spectrum, something you'd blend it with other colors to make them lighter or darker, something usually overlooked and unseen. Not Daisy. She was like a vibrant purple or a dazzling orange, a color that caught your eye right away and didn't have to be mixed with another shade because she wasn't meant to be blended in. It was meant to shine and be unique. When he sketched her, he even drew the little star she had tattooed on her wrist. Yes, Daisy was the only girl at Bayer High who had a real tattoo. Not one of those stick-ons that only lasted a couple of weeks. A real one outlined in red that was permanent. He wanted to ask her how she managed to get it, or if she had any more. How had she convinced her parents to agree since she was still in high school? But he never got up the nerve to ask her even talk to her. Then he thought she was going to walk right past him like she usually did. But she actually stopped right in front of him. She smiled and flashed her perfect teeth. He swallowed hard. He felt a little tingle in his heart. Suddenly, something tiny flew at him and hit his nose. A dumb bug. Probably. So mesmerized by Daisy, he brushed it away. "Hi," she said. Her voice was soft, yet confident. He waved a nervous hand and blushed. Oh wow, he was such a dweeb. He looked down at his worn tennis shoes, doodled with black ink, cleared his throat, and met her eyes. Hi. Something else hit his forehead. He slapped it away. Couldn't believe Daisy Sayland was actually speaking to him. This was the greatest day of his life. "Danny?" she said. Wow, she actually knew my name. "Yes, Daisy?" She tossed her hair over her shoulder with her hand, placed a hand on her hip. "The breakfast is ready." Danny blinked. Huh? Another something? Was it a bug? Hit his cheek and fell to the ground, then another. Then he glanced down at the floor. Fruity cereal circles were scattered around him. Wait, what was happening? He looked at Daisy once more. She frowned at him. "I said, Danny, your breakfast ready." Then he blinked awake. On its twin-sized bed in his room, he spotted his MC Asher poster and two hands drawing each other on the wall, and the stacks of graphic novels on his bookshelves. He was definitely home. Not at school, of course. It had been a dream. Daisy Sayland had never graced him with her attention in real life. But it had been such a nice dream. "Danny, I said your breakfast is ready." His mom called out from somewhere in the house. "Hurry so you're not late for school, Kay? Bobby, rise and shine." English accent again. Should stop. Another fruity circle hit his face. Then he sat up, rubbed at his sleepy eyes, and spotted his 3.5-year-old little brother Johnny standing in the doorway of his bedroom with a plastic cup full of cereal in his hand. He was gleefully taking aim and launching his breakfast loops at Danny's head. "Hey, stop that, Johnny!" Danny scowled at him. Johnny giggled and threw a handful that showered his carpet in bed like confetti, then stuck his tongue out and ran away. "Little monster." Danny sighed, shoved back his covers, and placed his legs over the side of the bed. He stretched his legs out and yawned. His mother filled his doorway next. Her brown hair was pulled back away from full cheeks. She wore her pastel green dental assistant scrubs. "Danny, I've been calling you. Get up, kiddo. Your toaster tarts are on the table." Toaster tarts. She looked down at the carpeted floor. "For goodness sakes, Danny, what is this mess? Clean this right up. I don't have time for this." She huffed as she rushed down the hallway. "Bobby, get up. Come on now. You have enough tarty slips to fill my purse. Let's go." I'm awake, Ma," Bobby called out. Danny's shoulders sagged in quiet frustration before gathering the fruit circles from his blankets and then slid off his bed and onto the floor. He picked up the rest of the fruity cereal and tossed them in his little trash can by his desk. He straightened and walked out his bedroom, scratching his head, down the hallway and into the kitchen. There were his toaster tarts on the table at his seat. He didn't even like toaster tarts anymore. Not since 5th grade, but his mom didn't listen to him, so he ate them anyway. There was fresh fruit and eggs on a plate for Bobby, since he was in training mode for his workouts. Although Danny wasn't sure what Bobby was even training for. It appeared to Danny that his older brother was always lifting weights and flexing his muscles in the mirror for his own enjoyment. Danny, on the other hand, was on the thinner side. With skinny arms and legs, he'd never been into sports. His mom always told him that when he was little, he'd spent most of his time daydreaming and by himself coloring books, instead of playing with Bobby or any school friends. Some things didn't really change, he guessed. Then he grabbed the toaster tarts and walked into the front room to study their Christmas tree. It was a real Douglas fir tree, sitting crookedly in the stand in the front of the window. Years of handmade ornaments were hung on the branches, and tangled lights were wound around it. Tinsel was thrown all over by Johnny's crazy decorative hand. Dad hadn't seen it yet. He was still traveling with his job and would likely be home right before the holiday in a couple of weeks. "Oh!" Danny nipped on his tart and turned to see his little brother on his big brother's shoulders, raising his arms and shouting, "Oh! Aster! Aster!" Bobby held on to Johnny's legs and speed walked through the living room. Speed mode. Bobby rushed past Danny, moved around the coffee table, and then launched Johnny onto the big cushiony couch. Then proceeded to tickle him in his neck. In his neck, yeah. Okay. Johnny burst out laughing. "Nanas, nanas." Bananas was the family code word for surrender. Johnny had started speech class a month ago and was working with a therapist to pronounce all his words when he spoke, but everyone in his family had learned to understand him just fine. Just not anyone outside the house. Both of Danny's brothers got their dad's honey blonde hair, and Danny inherited his mom's dark brown, which was fine, Danny supposed. It didn't need to be exactly like them anyway. Mom rushed into the front room with Johnny's jacket and lunchbox. "Boys, that's enough. I'll be home at 5. I expect you guys to get started on your homework before I get home, so you're not up late getting it done. Keep an eye on Johnny till I get home. He'll be dropped off at 4 after speech therapy." "I got something after school, Ma," Bobby told her. "That school meeting I told you about. It's for college applications, remember? She sighed. Right. That leaves you, Danny. Be home by 3:30, okay? Danny nodded. Not that his mom looked over at him. She always seemed to be on a fast-forward setting, rushing around, taking care of the house, working full-time, while Dad was away for his job, and taking care of 3 boys. Even at 15, Danny accepted that it was a lot. So, while his little brother was a can-do-no-wrong little monster, and his older brother talked a bunch and monopolized his mother's attention, Danny had grown to be the quiet one. The one who didn't cause problems. He really only enjoyed drawing in his sketchbook and keeping to himself anyway. All cleaned up and dressed for school, Danny hooked on his pale blue backpack. He decorated the front pack with drawings and trees and animals with black marker. He grabbed his white graphite pencil and hooked it over his ear and headed out the front door to walk to BHS. His older brother brushed past him. Out of the way, Danny boy. Bobby's friend Tyler was picking him up in his beat up old truck, which had 2 rusted fenders and tires that had seen better days. Danny watched his older brother hop into the passenger side and slam the heavy door shut. Music blasted as they took off from the curb. A spurt of white smoke puffed out of the old muffler. Danny turned around and locked the front door, then took off for the 2 blocks to his school. The winter morning had a harsh chill. There was a thin layer of ice on car windows and rooftops. The town of Marston didn't normally get snow, normally twice in the last 50 years, as locals often shared. But this winter was especially frigid. Danny and his brother often wished it would snow for the holidays. When Danny hit the first corner, he spotted his best friend, Aaron Glasgow, waiting for him. Aaron's backpack was hooked on his shoulder, and he held his flute case in his right hand. He wore dark-rimmed glasses that looked strange over his long nose. The glasses were secured with a band that wrapped around his head and kept his glasses secure so he wouldn't lose them during his school activities. He wore pressed khakis and a knitted red sweater and scarf that his mom likely made for him. Danny and Aaron had gravitated toward each other in preschool, since they were the only ones who would sit in one place for hours instead of running around chasing each other on the playground like the other kids. Hey, Aaron said to him. Hey, Danny said back, as they continued to school. Did you read the latest Blake, the Hero graphic novel? Blake the Hero was about an average high schooler named Blake Billings, who didn't have a lot of friends, but he had a secret persona. Hero, who wore a bright red mask and helped right wrongs in his small town just by using his smarts. That was why Aaron and Danny liked it so much. They could relate to being a nobody like Blake, but dreamed of being a cool, secret teen superhero like him. And of course, Danny liked all the illustrations. He might want to be a graphic novelist one day. Is it out already? Danny asked Aaron. Yeah, yesterday. I made Claudia drive me over to the mall and wait in line to get it. Claudia was Aaron's older sister. Oh wow, do you think they'd sold out already? Don't know, but maybe we can go after school? Danny began to nod, then remembered Johnny. Can't. I have to go home when Johnny's dropped off later. Oh well. Do you want me to tell you about it? Danny held up a hand. No way, I hate spoiled. Okay, but it's super good. I stayed up late and finished it. How about the latest Uno Samurai issue? Danny shook his head. He'd been a little distracted lately, he guessed. You're way behind. The boys walked up to the entrance of the Bay High as other kids swarmed in. The hall was loud with voices. The walls were covered with bright posters for school events and activities that Danny always ignored. He wasn't much of a joiner. They finally squeezed through groups of kids and made their way to Danny's lockers to exchange books for first period. You got to get the latest copy right away, Corin told him. I need someone to talk about the novels with really bad. I'll try, Danny said. Then he looked around and pulled out the latest drawing he'd made of Daisy from his backpack. Hey, what is that? Aaron asked, then said flatly, Oh, another one. It was a character-like illustration of Daisy Sayland, as if she was in a graphic novel. Then he quickly walked across the hallway, a few lockers down to Daisy's, slipped the drawing through the vent, and went quickly back to his locker to stand by Aaron. That's a little weird. You make drawings of her and then drop it in her locker? That's some stalker behavior, man. Oh well. A kid doing kid things, I guess. His breath thinned because he was a little nervous about Daisy catching him. How long are you going to be sneaking her drawings? Aaron asked. Why don't you just talk to her? Danny shook his head as his cheeks warmed. No, I can't. She's too stuck up. No! Danny shook his head, pulled the pencil from his ear and rolled it between his thumb and finger. Just way cooler than me, that's all. Suddenly Danny felt that little tingle in his heart and quickly turned around toward the front entrance. Sure enough, he spotted Daisy maneuvering through kids down the hallway by herself. It was like rock music played in his head as she moved. He wondered if he was the only one who felt like that when he saw her. Even though Daisy was really pretty, she didn't seem to have a lot of friends. Other girls tended to stare at her from a distance in awe because she had a tattoo. And they seemed to begrudge her for being different. But Daisy always looked confident and didn't seem to worry about what other kids thought of her. Gosh, it's like you have a sixth sense with her, Aaron told him. So weird. Maybe he did. That had to mean something, right? Then he watched her walk past him with a tote bag hooked over her shoulder and a binder hugged against her. Today she wore a pretty purple sweater, a puffy black jacket, faded blue jeans, and black boots. Her hair was wavy and brushed back behind her shoulders. Hi, Daisy, Aaron said out of the blue. Danny's eyes widened as he nervously glanced at his best friends, who must have gone completely bonkers. They never talked Daisy Sayland. Daisy turned her gaze to Aaron, then actually turned her eyes towards Danny for a millisecond. Oh wow. Daisy Sayland actually looked at him and met his eyes. For the very first time, it was like something clicked within him. He felt his entire body temperature rise. Daisy shifted her gaze towards Aaron and lifted her eyebrows, seemingly uncertain, then gave a half wave as she glided away. Then he spun around and shoved his best friend's shoulder. Are you crazy? Aaron snickered. You should have seen her face. I thought you were going to pass out. It was so classic. He laughed so hard he started to cough, so he pulled out his inhaler from his pant pocket and took a puff into his mouth, sucking in the meds. Do you really know Daisy Sayland? Danny asked his best friend. Aaron slipped his inhaler back into his pocket. Why do you say her full name like that? Daisy Sayland is so pretty. Daisy Sayland. I love her. Shh. Danny quickly glanced over his shoulder. Quiet. Have geometry with Daisy Sayland. No big deal. Danny's eyes widened. You never told me. You never asked. Aaron shrugged. It's not like we talk to each other. She's way cooler, remember? You're seriously lucky. What's she like? Is she good at math? She's probably really good at everything. Aaron frowned. Nah, sorry, not much to tell. She's just a regular girl. Kinda snobby, if you ask me. Danny slowly shook his head. No way. She's the prettiest girl at Bayer. She remembered the first day. He remembered the first day he'd seen her at Bayer High. It was his second day of ninth grade. He was struggling with his locker combination. He happened to turn around and lean back against his locker, defeated. And there she was, walking by like a breath of fresh air. Everyone seemed to be staring at Daisy because there was just something about her that made you look. Danny had stood mesmerized by her as his stomach hitched. When she was finally gone, Danny turned around to open his locker, and miraculously it opened. Right there and then, he knew Daisy was special. Okay. Weird. Aaron stared at him, shaking his head. You got problems, Danny. Got to get them to class. Got to get to class. Not get your problems to class. Gotta get to class. See you at lunch. Aaron took off and disappeared into the mass of kids. Danny waited another moment as Daisy opened her locker. He held his breath when she spotted the drawing. He reached in to grab it and glance at it, then looked around the hallway. Danny whirled away and turned to look inside his own locker, his heart beating erratically. Stay calm, he murmured. Would she love it? I don't know, he wondered. Would she take it home and pin it to her wall? Or maybe tape it to the inside of her locker? Pride filled him like a balloon at the thought. He waited a moment, took a breath, and turned to look back at her over his shoulder, but she was gone. He looked around but couldn't find her. All that he saw were a bunch of moving kids he hardly knew. She could have slipped the drawing into her binder to take it home, he thought, or left it in her locker for the time being. Then he shut his locker and started to walk to his first period. He spotted a crumpled up paper on the floor by her locker. Frowning, he picked it up. As he unwrinkled it, his heart sank. It was the drawing he'd made for her. Daisy Sayland had discarded his artwork like a piece of garbage. That evening, Danny sat at the dinner table with his mom and two brothers. It was chicken strips and mashed potatoes night. That seat was empty as usual, but Danny couldn't wait till he got home for Christmas. His dad was the greatest. He wasn't home a lot because he had to travel to teach other companies how to use new corporate computer software, and the boys knew it was a good paying job in order to support the family, but it didn't stop them from missing him. When Dad came home, he was real patient with Danny and his brothers. He'd listen to all their stories and then he'd spend time with each of them while he was home for a few days. He was really supportive of Danny's art, always telling him how good his work was and how he could find a good job as a digital illustrator one day. Danny couldn't wait to talk to his dad man to man. He had something new to discuss with him besides art, and it had to do with how to impress a girl. He wanted to ask Dad how he got his mom to like him. He just knew his dad would give him the right advice. After all, his parents were high school sweethearts. Mom got up to clear her plates and strolled into the kitchen when her cell phone rang at her seat. Danny's eyes widened as he was sitting next to Mom's chair and could see who was calling on the screen. Who is it? Bobby asked from across the table. Danny didn't answer him because he knew his brother would try to grab the phone first. Danny snatched the phone and stood up to answer. Hi, Dad. Hey, Danny. How you doing, son? Danny smiled, hearing his dad's cheerful voice. Good, everything's good. Let me talk to him, Bobby snapped as he stood up and rounded the table. Danny maneuvered in the other direction. Daddy? I want to talk to Daddy, Johnny cried out from his chair. Hey, Dad, when you get home, I need to talk. Hey! Bobby grabbed the phone out of his hand like a rotten thief. Hi, Dad. How's it going? Bobby said into the phone. Yeah? That's good. You wouldn't believe the grade I got on my recent econ test. Blew it out of the park. Danny pulled at his older brother's muscular arm, but he was too strong, too tall. Bobby shoved Danny away with a palm to his face. Danny fell to the carpet annoyed. Johnny was next to Bobby, hopping up and down, trying to reach for the phone. Addie, want it? Ugh. Mum came barreling out of the kitchen. Her cheeks were rosy and her eyes were bright whenever Dad called. Boys, stop that. Bobby, give me the phone, please. Okay, Dad. Yes, Mum. Love you. He handed the phone to Mum. Hi, honey. Yes. Just finished up dinner. What was your day? Mum strolled in the kitchen for some privacy. Danny was on the phone on his feet, pointing a thumb to his chest. I got the phone first, Bobby. You know the rules. Whoever got the phone first was supposed to be able to talk to Dad for a minute. After all, Bobby had made the dumb rule himself. Bobby shrugged his shoulders. Yeah, well, you cheated. You wouldn't say who was calling. Whatever. Just want to hog Dad all to yourself all the time. Bobby shook his head and made a circle with his fingers towards Danny's face. Watch out, Danny boy. You're turning a little green. Yeah, well, you may be older, but sometimes you act like a baby. Danny stomped over and grabbed his plates from the table to take it to the kitchen. Oh, Johnny whined. I want to add. Okay. Both of my brothers are annoying, Danny thought. Kinda weird. I mean, I get that the dad is away on business trips, but couldn't he call all evening, right? It's not like he has to work all day. Still has free time wherever he is. It's kinda weird. Not weird, I guess, but still. That they're so clamoring over getting to talk to him, right? Whatever. That Sunday, after a load of Christmas shopping, Mom surprised Danny and his brothers with a stop at Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex for a late dinner. The boys all hooted with joy when Mom pulled into the busy parking lot. Cool, Mom, thanks, Bobby told her. Egg pizza. What? Ega Isa. What does that mean? Mega pizza. Oh, Johnny shouted, with his arms waving in the air. Yeah, thanks, Mom, Danny told her. You're welcome, boys. A little treat for you guys. Sorry I'm so busy lately. There it was. That little crack in Mom's voice when she started missing Dad. Come on, let's go have some fun. Danny gazed about as they entered the large entertainment establishment, while bright lights flashed in every direction, from fun, fast rides to neon-lit posters featuring the amazing features of the Pizzaplex, Monty's Gator Golf, Basil Blast, Roxy's Raceway, the Fazcade, gift shops, and more. Music and game pings and bells overpowered Danny's senses. He smelled pepperoni pizza and something sweet and syrupy. Crowds of families swarmed the first floor, holding their little kid's hand or trying to run after them. It was chaotic entertainment in every direction, and Danny and his brothers loved it. This time, bright Christmas decoration caught his eye. Danny had seen the Pizzaplex during the holidays before. There were several decorated trees in every entertainment section of the massive building, shiny ornaments and wreaths hung on the walls with several twinkling lights. Whoa, Danny whispered. He gazed to the upper floors, seeing the handrails glowing with lights and adorned with Christmas wreaths. He nearly ran into Glamrock Freddy as the character waved to everyone while wearing a Santa hat. Danny shifted past him, gazing at the shining lightning bolt on his chest. All the Pizzaplex workers were dressed as elves, wearing red vests and red hats with fake pointed ears. It was so funny and cool. Bobby ran ahead and found them an empty table in the far corner of the eatery. Families had their tables filled with pizza, soda, paper plates, and napkins. They're still using paper plates in a Mega Pizzaplex? You'd think they can afford normal plates, I guess. Whatever. After the fill of pizza and soda, his mom gave Danny and Bobby a handful of tokens while she took Johnny to the little kids' play area to play. "Let's meet at the entrance in a half hour, boys," she told them. "Have fun and watch out for each other." Bobby and Danny took off to the fastcade, where they quickly started playing arcade games. It wasn't long after Danny used up all his tokens, got stuck watching his brother play an arcade game. Bobby was always way better at the games than Danny. Danny observed the boy and girl holding hands as they walked down the games, and he thought of Daisy. He really wished he could talk to his dad about her. He looked up at his older brother. Bobby's blonde hair was unruly and nearly in his eyes. His cheeks were pink because it was warm in the arcade with all the kids. Danny remembered Bobby having a short-term girlfriend during his freshman year. It only lasted a week, but maybe he would give Danny some advice. "Bobby, can I ask you a serious question?" Danny asked, squinting at him. Bobby rolled his circular ball embedded in the arcade game panel with his other hand slapped at the 3 buttons in order for his player to evade animatronic. "Bobby," Danny said, "can I ask you a serious question?" "What, Danny? Can't you see I'm playing here? Oh, dang it. Look what you made me do. I lost the game. I was so close to getting top score." Doesn't PGY have the top scores? Never mind. Danny started to walk away. Bobby sighed. Okay. What's the question?" Danny turned back to his brother, who was now leaning against the arcade game he'd just lost on. His arms crossed, he wore his usual outfit of sweats and a hoodie. "Well, it's about a girl," he said flatly. Danny's eyes widened. "How'd you know?" Bobby shook his head like his brother just didn't get something. "Hard to miss, you're always drawing her in his sketchbook all the time." Bobby grinned. "Name's a flower, right? Rosie, or Rose, or Lily, or whatever. Daisy." Danny narrowed his eyes. "Have you been spying on me? Get real. I've way better things to do. What's the matter? You want to kiss her or something?" He proceeded to pucker his lips like make annoying kissing sounds that made Danny's face heat. A girl walked by and gave Bobby a weird look. Bobby cleared his throat and straightened. "No, just forget it." Danny flung out his arms in frustration. How could he think his brother would ever be serious? He whirled around to stomp off when Bobby hooked a hand into his hoodie, bringing him to a halt, and spun him around. "Hold up. I'm just playing around. What do you want to know, then?" Danny crossed his arms, then huffed out a breath. "Well, I just want to know how you get a girl to talk to you." "Talk?" He scrunched up his face and waved a hand towards Danny. "That's easy. You just go up and ask her a question and introduce yourself. Not that hard." Maybe it wasn't that hard for Bobby, but for Danny, it wasn't so easy. "Well, and how do you get a girl to even notice you?" Bobby rubbed at his jaw and studied Danny's face. "You really like this girl?" Danny nodded. "Yeah, but she's way more interesting than me." Bobby shook his head. "You got to be more confident, Danny. Come on. Want to know what girls like?" Wide-eyed, Danny nodded. "Presents," he said with certainty. "Give the girl a nice present or a gift, and you're instantly on their radar." Danny tilted his head. "A gift? His dad did bring Mom flowers every so often." "Oh yeah?" "Something she's interested in. Some of them like cutesy stuff, like a stuffed teddy bear. Maybe a bracelet, candy, or something artsy, depending on the girl, though." "Well, she didn't like my drawings very much." Bobby shrugged his shoulders. "Maybe she's not into art." Danny's spirit took another hit at the reminder. "She likes art, just not mine." "Why? What'd she say when you gave her your drawings?" Danny shifted uncomfortably on his feet. "Well, I didn't actually talk to her." Bobby rolled his eyes. "Come on. You have to talk to the girl, Danny. It's kind of required when you like someone. You want them to like you back." Bobby looked around and spotted something across from the arcade. "Hey, Look over there. Danny swiveled his head in the direction his brother pointed. There was a Santa giftplex area that had opened up for the holidays. Find something in there and give it to him. But you gotta introduce yourself this time when you do. Bobby gave him a big shove in the back and Danny stumbled forward. Go on, I'll let Mom know you're shopping for a gift for a friend. Hello, families. The Mega Pizzaplex will be closing in 15 minutes, the loudspeaker announced. Oh no, Danny murmured as he rushed over to the giftplex. He didn't have much time to pick up a special gift for Daisy. He pulled out a $5 bill from his pocket. He also didn't have much money to buy a nice gift either. Danny speed-walked into Santa's giftplex and instantly became mesmerized with his surroundings. Bells were jingling to holiday songs. Roxanne Wolf stood at the entrance waving to everyone who walked in and out. Give me my eyes. No, she probably didn't say that. The animatronic wore a Santa hat and had white fur on the edge of her red outfit. Everywhere Danny looked, he saw bright red and green decorations with hints of winter flakes and frosted glass. There were special booths spread out in the great room. Some were lined with stuffed dolls and action figures of Glamrock Betty, Glamrock Chica, Montgomery Gator, and Roxanne Wolf. Chocolate candy and cakes were displayed that looked too perfect to eat. Christmas lights hung from the ceiling, and little trees were placed all along the walls. There was a poster booth and a t-shirt and sweatshirt booth, all with the Mega Pizzaplex logo. Purses and backpacks were hung in one area. In another, there were cups, posters, and plastic toys of all different colors, and magical balls with funny characters on them. Gifts recommended for your mom and dad, such as candies and candles, books, scarves, and socks, were in a different place. Whoa, Danny whispered, wide-eyed. This was one of the coolest gift shops he's ever seen. He spotted a few kids surrounding a booth in a far corner. Curious, Danny walked over to get a closer look. The sign above was written in neon letters, gift wrapping. A large window of frosted glass stood as a barrier while the present was being decorated with wrapping paper and tied with big frilly bows, set upon a glass table as if by magic. There wasn't an elf or a helper involved at all, and no one was holding the present. Wow! The colorful design on the wrapping paper spread across the paper with special ink that seemed to flow like water. The bows were spiraling and spinning like twirling dancer. The gift was set on a glass table, and the paper was magically wrapping the box by itself, and being sliced away to fit the gift perfectly. But how? How's this happening? Danny asked in awe. The kid next to him answered, I don't know, but it's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I just keep buying small things and sticking them in the little door just to watch it get wrapped by itself. Danny nodded in agreement. Yes, I do that too. He finally noticed the mini door in the glass where the present could be placed inside. He heard a girl shout over his right, Wow, this is so funny. Ha ha ha. It tickled so bad. Next to the gift wrapping booth, behind the same frosted glass, the girl had her arms inserted into two holes in the glass that connected to a large iron vat that was secured behind the frosted barrier. The outside of the structure was painted bright red and wrapped with glowing lights. It was shaped like something he'd seen in a history class, an iron lung, which is a long, narrow device that could hold a person's body to help them breathe or something. Danny tilted his head, wondering what was happening to the kid. Then the red light surrounding the iron lung flashed to green, and the girl pulled her arms out to reveal that her arms were painted with colorful tattoos. It's just like I imagined, she shouted. Oh my gosh, I love them. Don't you love them? Her friend gasped and admired the new artwork. The tattoos were bright with colorful designs and butterflies and flowers. Danny's eyes widened in excitement. as he instantly thought of Daisy Seylan. She would love something like this, but how was it working, he wondered. What kind of magic was being used to paint the wrapping paper and draw on kids' arms? He had to know. If you learned anything from these stories, it's that curiosity is a killer. Be careful there. What kind of magic was being used to paint the wrapping paper and draw on kids' arms? He had to know. If he could somehow impress Daisy Seyland with this unique body art, it could be truly awesome. 5 minutes, families. Please finish up your activities and slowly make your way to the exit. Danny's excitement deflated as he was running out of time. He swiveled his head around as kids started walking out of the Santa's giftplex. He blinked as a quick idea formed. He took his cell phone out of his back and pocket and texted his brother. "Then, Mom, I'm running late in the bathroom. Stomach ache. Please wait for me. I'll try to hurry. Bobby." Mom said to hurry up. "We'll be in the car." Danny smiled. He looked around, and when he watched Roxanne Wolf turn away, he ducked behind a fake Christmas tree beside the frosted glass to the magic gift wrapping booth. He sat on the red carpet and pulled his knee to his chest as his pulse drummed. He looked through the frosted glass as another box was being magically gift wrapped. A few minutes later, the lights in Santa's giftplex dimmed. He peered around the tree and didn't see any more employees looking around. Maybe he could somehow find an opening to the booth. The small door to put in a present seemed too compact and too tight to get through. Why would she try to get in there? I'm not following the logic here. He curiously pushed his palms against the glass and realized it was some kind of thick plastic that could bend. Could actually slip inside, but not get out. Maybe. He pushed harder and squeezed his body through the gap, falling onto the cement floor littered with scraps of wrapping paper and clips of ribbons. His 3 slices of pepperoni pizza felt like a rock in the pit of his stomach. He was so nervous. Above him, he watched through the clear glass table as a gift continued to be wrapped, eagerly inched closer. He squinted his eyes and discovered something tiny was moving with the wrapping paper, something really minuscule. There were a lot of them. He moved even closer under the table as his eyes adjusted to the quick move. He gasped. It wasn't magic at all, but the littlest robots he'd ever seen. The bots had to be the size of a grain of rice. They seemed to fly through the air and they had no feet. They appeared to be color of frosted glass, so that was why it was hard to see them from far away. You couldn't see their hands as they moved in a blur of motion, working quickly to wrap and color and draw. These little bots were amazing, fascinating. He watched them do their incredible job for another moment when he felt his cell phone vibrate with a text, likely Bobby telling him to hurry up. The tiny bots were magical, all right. They seemed to create instantly with unlimited capacity. If he had his own bots, he could be two different designs every single day. And it would be his own little secret. But it's something really cool in common with Daisy Seylan. She would have to notice him for sure. Nearby, he heard keys rattling with footsteps. His pulse sped up, and it had to be a security guard checking to see if everyone was cleared out. Uncertain, he whipped out his hand and tried to grab a couple of bots, but he missed. They moved really fast. He narrowed his eyes as he jerked out his hand again and was able to grab a couple in his palm. He quickly stuffed them into his front pocket and squeezed back through the plastic window. Oh wow, he murmured in his head. Felt like his heart might race out of his chest. He just hoped he didn't get caught, or just took some bots that are gonna harm. That's a little dangerous. Just, I don't like this. This is not gonna end well, is it? Danny crawled from behind a tree to the back of another booth until the coast was clear. He ran to the front entrance and out the door. His breaths were rushing from his mouth. In the parking lot, he spotted his mom flashing the car lights and honking the horn. He ran over, opened the door, and jumped onto the back seat. You okay, hon? Too much pizza? He swallowed hard and licked his dry lips. Yeah, I'm okay now. Felt a little sting on his thigh and lightly tapped the buds in his pocket to settle them down. We'll be home soon, he thought. Boys, I completely forgot we're low on milk. Making a quick stop at the store before heading home. From the front passenger seat, Bobby looked over at Danny's hands to see if he'd gotten a gift for Daisy. When he noticed his hands were empty, he shook his head in what looked like disapproval. But Danny wasn't empty-handed at all. He had the best gift in his pocket that would literally change his life. I don't doubt they will. I don't doubt that. When they finally arrived home after picking up more than just milk at the store, Danny rushed to his bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. He slid his hand in the pocket and felt for the robots. A spurt of shock rippled through his body. His pockets were empty. No. He stuffed his hands in both pockets and pulled out the pocket linen. His $5 bill floated to the floor. No bots. Crushed. He fell onto the bed, arms spread out. He'd lost them. I doubt that. He felt a sting on his leg. I wonder where they could have gone. God, I hate this already. It must have fallen out somewhere. He hadn't been prepared for a spontaneous heist, so of course it hadn't worked out. Why hadn't he been more careful? There went his fantasy of Daisy Saleland really noticing him for a change. After a few more moments of self-pity, he sighed and accepted his defeat. Probably for the best anyway, he decided. Parents always taught him and his brothers to do the right thing, and stealing was wrong. He heard his mom yelling for everyone to get ready for bed, so he got up and to do just that. Maybe he'd actually get up the nerve to talk to Daisy Zendaya one day. Yeah, right. Aaron writes, had to stay in class at lunch, makeup test, see you after school. Then he read the text from Aaron at the beginning of lunch. Great. Now I have no one to sit with, he thought. Normally he didn't mind being alone, but he hated sitting by himself in high school. It felt like everyone stared and made fun of you if you were by yourself. First, he'd lost the bots. Now he had to be a loner at lunch. Just great. He decided he'd do some drawing and sketchbook in the school library, where everyone had to be quiet anyway, and he didn't mind being spotted alone. He walked in and scanned around for an empty seat at a table. The library was filled with wall-to-wall shelves, lined with books in the center with various work tables and computer stations. There were a few kids already scattered about the area, reading books or doing homework. At the far corner table, he spotted Daisy Saleland. Instantly, he felt that funny tingle in his heart. He was sitting alone, turning pages in a large book. He grabbed the graphite pencil from his ear and nervously rolled it between his fingers. He could find another seat far away from her, or he could take a chance, like his brothers had said, and actually talk to her. He wasn't sure how long he stood there, trying to debate with himself, when he finally murmured under his breath, "Just do it." Already. Swallowing hard, he walked across the library. It felt like it took forever. Kids gawked at him, giving him strange looks. He wondered why. Did he have a funny look on his face or something? Did he forget to comb his hair? Did he have a new zit? He finally got to the table and stood there awkwardly, uncertain of what to say as he tapped the pencil onto the palm of his left hand. Daisy turned the page in the book and Danny realized he was looking at a tattoo book. Slipped the graphite pencil back onto his ear. Hi. She glanced up with an uninterested look on her face and looked back down at her book. Hi, she answered. Go on, say something. Like what? He stared and stared until it finally dawned on him. Tattoo book. He was such a dweeb. He said, what tattoo do you like best? What kind of question is that? She looked up and blinked at him. In the book, he babbled. Are you thinking of getting another one? I mean, I saw the little star you have on your wrist, which is fantastic, by the way, and I figured you were wanting to get another one, which is understandable. Yeah. Stop rambling. She twisted her lips, and Danny thought she might ignore him. When she finally pointed to a small, simple heart at the bottom of the page, her fingernails were painted purple, he realized. I think this will be my next one. Maybe on the side. She pointed to above her hip. A rush of joy came over Danny. Daisy Salen was talking to him. Yes, yes, yes. He tried not to smile too big. Yeah, it would be really cool. I mean, that's what I want too. That's what I want too. Oh, Danny. Suddenly a sharp pain dug into his side. He slapped a hand there. Ow. Daisy looked up at him, her eyes directly as she scanned his face. It was like she was really seeing him for the first time. Like tats? She asked. He nodded. What's your name? She asked. I'm Danny. Daisy. I know. Perspiration lined his head as the pain in his side increased. What's happening? Yeah, I know. Do I have class with you or something? Oh no, I just... Another sharp pain drilled into his side so suddenly that he abruptly keeled over with a yelp. He heard kids make shh sounds, and the librarian said, Quiet, please. Yeah, what's the matter? Hey, what's the matter? Daisy asked, her expression suddenly concerned. Nothing. I gotta go. Danny whirled around and noticed the kids were all staring at him again. Embarrassed and unsure what was happening, he squinted out of the library, holding his stinging side. Breathing hard, he rushed into the boys' bathroom and into a stall. He ignored the scent of old pipes and stinky water and dropped his backpack on the floor. He pushed inside his zip-up sweatshirt and lifted his t-shirt. He was shocked to see a couple of lines of blood dripping from above his hip. Bewildered, he blinked. What happened? Then he grabbed some toilet paper and dabbed at the blood. Something was cut into his skin, he discovered. He lowered his head to try and see what it was, but was unsure what to make of it. He pushed out of the stall and stretched up on the tiptoes to get a better view in the mirror. His eyes widened in disbelief. How the heck did that happen? Carved into his skin, about the size of a quarter, was a small heart. The bots. Then he thought, as he hurried to his locker, it had to be the bots. There was no other way for a heart to suddenly engrave into his skin. But there was supposed to be a drawing on his skin, not a carving into his skin. He thought he'd lost the bots last night. What the heck was going on? He had no idea. He spun the combo on his lock and opened the door. Hey, there you are. Oh wow, that was Daisy's voice. Daisy whirled around. Danny. Both DA names. Danny whirled around to face her. He was breathing hard. Oh hey, Daisy, he said, and waved nervously with his hand. What happened? Why'd you take off so fast in the library? She glanced down on his side and noticed some of the blood on his t-shirt. Ouch. Did you hurt yourself or something? He nervously grabbed for the pencil in his ear and realized it was gone. He must have lost it. It's nothing, really. Just a scratch. Did you go to the nurse? Then he stepped back. No, I mean, not right now. I gotta go to class. What's the matter with you? She frowned at him. You're acting really weird. Then he froze. He didn't want her to think she was weird, but he didn't know if he should show her either. Gosh, could really use a girl handbook right now. You just need a person handbook, it seems, really. Reluctantly, he shifted his sweatshirt aside and lifted his t-shirt to reveal the little heart carved into his skin. This was so embarrassing. Daisy stared at his side for what seemed like eternity. What? Ow! Then her lips curved. That is really cool. Then his jaw dropped. Really? He blinked a couple of times. I mean, you like it? Yeah, I'm super impressed by your skill. The lines are clean. The heart is perfect. And you did it so fast. She met his eyes, and it was like she was truly seeing him for the first in new light. He felt her interest and her excitement. For his little heart? For his little heart. For his little heart. In a story called Bleeding Heart. Oh, this is some foreshadowing, isn't it? Or something. And the glow of admiration stole the fresh pain on his side as he dropped the hem of his shirt. He shrugged as he felt his face blush. Yeah, well, thanks, Daisy. Then he walked home after school in a daze as he stared at his cell phone in his hand. He actually had Daisy Seyland's number. She'd taken his phone and added to herself as a contact. Then he'd given his number to her. Now they could text, they could talk about body art. He got to know her better. They'd start to talk all the time. Maybe they'd eventually go on a date. Maybe go to the movies. They could share popcorn. Maybe she'd truly start to like him. One day, she could become his girlfriend. Oh wow, everything would be so perfect. Hey Danny, what's up? Then he turned to see Aaron running to catch up with him. Aaron's breaths were gushing through his mouth. He pulled out his inhaler for a puff when he reached him. What happened? Why didn't you wait for me after school? His shoulders were moving up and down with exertion. Danny's mouth gaped. He couldn't believe he forgot to wait for Aaron. Oh, sorry, Aaron. I guess I forgot. Are you serious? We walk home every day together. Aaron gave him a strange look. What did you end up doing at lunch? Oh yeah. Danny smiled big. Went to the library and actually ran into Daisy Seyland. We talked. He nodded his head and clarified. To each other. Aaron's eyes widened in surprise. His thick eyebrows inched up. You finally talked to her? What'd she say? Then he decided to leave out the part about the little heart. She gave me her number, look. He showed him to her contact on his phone. Aaron's eyebrows seemed to raise even more. She gave you her number? Then he nodded, excited. Amazing, right? Me. What do you think I should text her first? Or should I wait for her to text me? And if she does, should I text back right away? Or wait a little to show I'm not too anxious? Aaron shook his head in disbelief as they walked home. I don't know. I'm still stuck on the fact that she gave you her number. Danny, only half listening to Aaron on the short walk home. In his mind he was reeling that Daisy Seyland had talked to him and had given him her number. And at the same time, he was trying to figure out what went wrong with the bots and how he got carved with the heart instead of the design drawn onto his skin. He absently waved a goodbye to Aaron when they got to the street corner to part ways, and then he started to run home, his backpack hitting his back. Something was weird. He needed to understand what had happened. Danny unlocked his front door, slammed it shut, and rushed to his room. He didn't see anyone home, and he pulled out last night's pants from the laundry basket. He scanned the lining of the pockets. He'd found them empty the night before. This time he noticed two tiny, perfect holes in the lining of the pocket where he had put the bots. The circles looked as if they had been cut. His eyes widened as he pictured the wrapping paper being trimmed to the perfect size to wrap the presents at the Giftplex. How the ribbons were twirled and sliced into decorative bows. Could there have been two types of mini pots in the gift wrapping booth? He wondered. One type for drawing and coloring, and another type for the cutting. He hurried to his desk and opened a junk drawer and rummaged around for a tiny magnifying glass from his 6th grade science camp. Got it. He grabbed the tiny glass and quickly unbuttoned his pants and shoved his pants down to his ankles, and stood in his spaceship underwear as he scanned his legs with the magnifying glass. There, on his right thigh, there were 2 tiny marks, big enough for bots the size of a grain of rice to slip through. He raised his head in disbelief, and the magnifying glass slipped from his fingers. The bots had cut into his body. The bots were inside of him. Oh wow, oh wow, oh no. His heart pounded in his chest, and his face suddenly felt very hot. His hands went to his forehead. His stomach pitched and flipped over. His other hand went to his stomach. Out of all the bots, he took the wrong ones. He took the cutters instead of the painters. Now they were inside his body, able to cut into anything. Oh wow. Think I'm going to throw up. His body jerked as liquid gushed up his throat. He slapped a hand over his mouth and tripped over his pants around his ankles. He shoved to his feet and half ran, half slid to the bathroom. He made it to the toilet just in time to blow chunks. That evening, Danny told his mother he didn't feel good and stayed in bed through dinner. There was no way he could even think of eating at a time like this. His stomach was raw and upset. His hip was sore and itchy where the little heart was cut into him. He felt exhausted. He'd done something incredibly dumb. By accident. No, he did it deliberately, but he'd still done it. And he didn't know how he was going to fix it. His mind was whirling with uncertainty and fear. What was he going to do? How did you get tiny robots out of your body? He even tried to question on an internet search, body scan, x-ray, surgery. He doubted the little cutter robots were even big enough to be detected. No, you can definitely detect a grain of rice via x-ray, right? He ran a frustrated hand over his face. Oh wow, he messed up so bad. He wished his dad was home. Maybe he could call him and at least talk a little with him. Talking to his dad always made him feel good when he was down. He wouldn't be able to tell him exactly what happened. Who would really believe him? But his dad had a way of ensuring him that everything was going to work out in the long run. He grabbed his cell phone from his side table and dialed his dad's number. After a few rings, the voicemail recording came on. He closed his eyes and took a breath. Hi, Dad. It's Danny. I just want to talk to you, but I guess you're working. Could you call me back? I can't wait till you come home. I miss you. Okay. Love you. Bye. Danny clicked off the call, set the phone aside and curled up in his bed. His stomach was twirling like a washing machine. Eventually, he fell asleep. Honey, wake up. Danny blinked, awake to see his mom leaning over his bed. Her brown eyes looked worried. He could smell her rose perfume. You feeling okay, hon? Dad said you left a message on his voicemail. Is everything okay? He rubbed his eyes. Did he miss Dad's call? He reached for his cell phone on his side table. There was no missed call or message from Dad. But didn't he call me? Danny asked groggily. You know he's busy with work, hon. He checked in with me this morning and mentioned your call. She felt his head with her hand. You don't have a fever. Is it your stomach again? He shook his head. His stomach seemed to be all right at the moment. No, I'm okay. I'm getting up to go to school. Okay, just take it easy, Tarts. Tarts is not a nickname. Tarts will be on the table for you. Tarts is a good nickname, though, I think. He nodded his head, and his mum walked out of the bedroom. Bobby, you up? She called up. What? Yeah, Ma, Bobby answered from down the hallway, so his dad didn't get a chance to call him back. Then he realized, like Mum said, he was busy with work as usual. Danny buried the heavy disappointment he felt in his chest and sat up on his bed. He would be okay with the tiny bots inside of his body for now, he told himself. He hoped. That morning, he walked to school with Aaron, listening to him talk about the latest graphic novel that he still hadn't picked up. He shrugged when Aaron asked him if he could talk about them, so Aaron had jumped at the chance to share the entire plot on the way to school. Can you believe it? Cool ending, huh? I can't wait for the next issues. When Danny didn't respond, he asked him, Hey Danny, is everything okay? Danny nodded as he stepped inside the entrance of the school and made his way to his locker. Fine, I just... What? He shrugged uncomfortably. Kinda miss Dad. Aaron looked down and nodded. Oh, I get it. My dad sometimes goes on business trips and we miss him when he's gone. That's close to Christmas, but on the upside, you'll see him soon, yeah? Aaron gave him an encouraging smile. Danny forced his lips to curve. Yeah, you're right. He just wished his dad called him back. Okay, well, I'll see you at lunch. Okay, see you. Danny exchanged his books in the locker, closed the door, and turned. Daisy stood in front of him, hugging her binder in front of her. Hi, she said with a smile. Danny straightened his shoulders, his pulse spiking as a smile curved his lips. Oh, hi Daisy. Got some new body art magazines in the mail. Want to look at them at lunch with me? Fresh excitement rushed through Danny, making him feel a little better about his dad and calling him back. Sure. Yeah, that sounds great. She lifted her eyebrows. So, I'll see you in the library? He nodded. Yep, I'll be there. Okay, see you there. She turned around just as the first morning bell rang. Daisy Zayland actually wanted to hang out with him at school. This was amazing, he thought of Aaron. Oh, he would understand. He reasoned as he took out his cell phone to text him that he was busy at lunch, that he'd see him after school. So which tattoos do you like? Daisy asked him from across the table in the library. She had 2 magazines. She was looking through one and Danny was skimming through another. They are all pretty cool, he said. I know, but what would you get if you could get one? She took out her cell phone and took a couple of photos of tattoos she liked. One was a hummingbird and the other was a little kitten. Truth was, Danny could get any of these tattoos, but they would get etched instead of inked. Wonder what Daisy would think about that. She is a girl, he reasoned, so she might gross out. Right. No, I think anyone would gross out, right? I mean, that is no good. Right then, the little heart on his hip started to itch again, and he scratched at it. The animal ones. But I might try and draw one of my own designs and see what I can come up with. Daisy flipped her hair back with a hand. You draw? He blinked and realized Daisy knew nothing about him. He didn't even know it had been him who drew the picture of her that he found in her locker. Considering she crumpled up the latter one and threw it away, he wasn't about to tell her it had been him either. He nodded. Yeah, I like to draw. I should have known with that drawing pencil on your ear. She smiled at him and Danny felt a warm glow in his chest. He smiled back. Good observation skills. Could you draw the tattoo you would get if you could? Danny nodded. Sure, I could. The bell rang for lunch to be over. Great. Draw a tattoo design and show me tomorrow. Okay, I will. After school, Danny walked home with Aaron, listening to him talk about his music class. Then Hank Mason hit Charlie Cooper in the nose with his clarinet. By accident, but the entire class started busting up laughing. Mrs. Jimenez was not amused though. Oh, and Katie Howard freaked out when a spider crawled out of her violin case. Danny didn't say much as Aaron talked. He kept replaying lunch with Daisy in his mind. She really was so pretty, and she was nice too. How could Aaron even think she was snobby? As soon as they got to their corners to part ways, Danny waved goodbye and rushed off to his house. See you tomorrow, Danny, Aaron called out. When Danny got home, he went straight to his room and pulled out his sketchbook from his backpack. He plopped down onto his bed and started to draw a grizzly bear. He had always admired bears since he had to do a report on them in 5th grade. They were big and strong and independent, something that Danny wished he could be sometimes, minus the having to hunt for his food and shelter. He sketched a big grizzly bear in a graphic novel style with thick lines and no shading. Didn't take him as long as he thought. When he was done, he gazed at his drawing. It was pretty good, he realized. Probably one of his best. Maybe spending time with Daisy really inspired my artwork, he thought. Sure felt like it. I do want a tattoo like this, probably right on my shoulder. As soon as he said it, his stomach pinched. Wait, I mean one day, not now. Too late. A sharp cut pierced his skin on his right shoulder. He yelped as the bots sliced into him, grabbed at his arm and fell to the floor, sweat pooling on his forehead as he felt the wetness of blood pool under his shirt, and while the tiny knife carved and scraped. Please no, I didn't mean it. Stop! But the cutting didn't cease and seemed to go on and on and on. A tear ran down his cheek and then another. The pain was so bad. He thought he was going to pass out from the agony, until finally the bots unexpectedly stopped and the cutting pain turned into a steady throbbing. Breathing hard, he rolled onto his back on the carpet as he felt blood drip down his arm. He messed up again. He ran a hand down his face and wiped away his sweat and tears. He laid there another moment, then slowly got up and pulled off his hoodie. Streaks of blood ran down his arm. As he hesitantly lifted the sleeve of his t-shirt, there on his shoulder was the bear design carved into the skin that he'd just sketched. He lifted his eyebrows because it had been a real tattoo. It would have looked really good, but as a bloody injury, it was a painful mess. I have to be more careful with what I say. When he got up and walked to the bathroom to clean up before anyone came home. When he walked out of the bathroom, sore, tired, and patched up with some gauze, he glanced down at his bloody t-shirt. His blood. If his mom found all the blood stains on his gloves, she would freak out. It would actually be a good thing. Get you to a hospital. Actually try and get those things out. He quickly grabbed the shirt he was wearing when he got the first little heart and the hoodie he wore earlier, then took off his shirt that had blood on it, and he rushed to the laundry room. He rinsed out the blood spots as best as he could in the sink and then placed everything in the wash with some laundry soap. He sighed in relief when he started the wash cycle. Everything is going to be okay, he told himself. Then he heard the key rattle in the front door. He ran to his room to shut the door before anyone noticed his badged up shoulder. The next day at school, Daisy walked up to his locker while Aaron was still with him. Hi, Danny, she said. Hi, Daisy. This is Aaron, Danny said. I already know him, Aaron said. Hi. Daisy tilted her head, gave Aaron a brief glance and looked away. No, I don't know him. You have 4th period together, Aaron told her. Oh, really? Daisy shrugged. So, Danny, did you make the drawing we talked about? Danny nodded. He pulled out a sketchbook from his backpack and turned to the page with the bear illustration. Well, that's really cool, Daisy gushed. Danny smiled. Yeah, you like it? She nodded. Could definitely see that as a tattoo. Tattoo? Aaron interrupted with a scrunched up face. I think you have a while till that happens. Anyway, why would you want to mess up your body like that? Daisy rolled her eyes. Tattooing is a form of artistic self-expression, Eric. Jesus. Aaron's thick eyebrows pushed towards each other. I told you it's Aaron. Tattooing is also very painful and expensive. I've seen stuff online. And that's supposed to make you such an expert or something. Daisy snapped back. It's only painful for those who can handle the pain. She smiled at Danny. But Danny can handle it. Right, Danny? Oh. And of course, I can. I have an actual tattoo. Aaron laughed. Danny used to cry when he scraped his knee. There's no way he could handle the pain of getting a real tattoo. That's what you think, Alec. Okay, I can see why he thought or thinks that she's snobby. Daisy smiled at Danny, as if hitting at their little secret. Aaron grumbled. Aaron. Danny gave Aaron a look. All right, Aaron. Don't you have to get to your locker before class? Aaron flinched in surprise. Oh, I guess. He glanced uncertainly at Daisy and then Danny. I'll see you at lunch. You're coming to the library today, Danny? Daisy asked. Danny cleared his throat. Well, library? Is that where you went yesterday? Aaron asked him. Yes. Yes, we hang out together at lunch now, Daisy boldly told Aaron. Just the two of us. We talk about tattoos, something you're obviously not very interested in, Alvin. Well, Aaron corrected again, absently, pointing a thumb at Daisy. That true, Danny? You want to hang out with her at lunch and talk about tattoos? Danny shifted uncomfortably on his feet. I guess I mean I want to hang out with both. Fine. Aaron pulled out his inhaler and took a puff. Do whatever you want. I got something to do anyway. Then he turned around and stalked away. Hey, Aaron, Danny called out as guilt weighed on him. Hold on. But his best friend didn't stop to look back and soon disappeared into the hallway crowd. Just let him go, Danny, Daisy said. Can see him later. Danny felt bad, but he would see Aaron after school and try to explain how good it was to have Daisy want to talk to him and spend time with him. In fact, it felt really great. Aaron probably didn't get it because he didn't have a crush like Danny had on Daisy. Maybe Daisy has a crush on Daisy too. I don't know. Come on. You can walk me to class. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Danny recoiled at a touch. Ow! Daisy snatched back her hand. What happened? I barely touched you. Danny grabbed tentative at his shoulder. Oh, it's nothing. Then she slowly smiled. You did it again, didn't you? Danny sighed. Oh, kinda. Her eyes widened in excitement, and Danny's heart swelled with her gleeful attention. Come on, show me. The first bell rang. Maybe at lunch, she nodded. Meet me at the track field at lunch. Can't wait to see it. Danny gave her a hesitant smile. I think you really like it. I don't know. It's not healed yet. And even if it did, it's just going to be crusted. Ugh. No. Oh my gosh, Danny, did it hurt? Daisy stared in awe at the rawness of the shoulder as he showed her far off in the corner of the school's track field. Kids roamed the field, but far enough away from them that they couldn't see the bare cut into Danny's skin. Did it hurt? The painful incident flashed back through his mind. Yeah, a little. This is awesome. How are you doing this? The lines are just so perfect and precise. Oh, well, it's something like a trade secret. She looked at him. A secret? Come on, you have to tell me. Friends don't have secrets from each other. Friends? Danny asked with a smile. Was now real friends with Daisy Silland. This was fantastic. She eagerly stepped closer, and Danny could smell her floral shampoo. Yeah, so tell me. He closed his eyes a moment because she smelled so good. but he just shook his head and placed the gauze back on his shoulder with the tape. There was no way she would believe it. Maybe later. He frowned but waved a hand in the air. Fine. Are you going to do more of these? Danny swallowed hard. I think I'll take a little break. Takes a lot of hard work. She nodded. If it was me, you wouldn't be able to stop me from getting more. It's such a drag. I have to wait for my parents to get back from the business trips, or when they aren't too busy to take me. Your parents travel a lot? She nodded. Yeah, I have to stay with my nanny. You have a nanny? Her cheeks flushed pink. Well, she was my nanny since I was little, and she still stays with me when my parents travel. Her name is Miss Gladys. I mean, I tell my parents I'm old enough to stay home on my own, but they feel better with her staying with me. Anyway, that was why they finally caved and let me get a tattoo. They wanted it to be okay with me that they travel all the time. They promised to let me get another one. You don't have siblings either? She shook her head. Danny nodded. Well, that's understandable. Not safe to stay home alone. My dad has to travel all the time for his job, but I'll be able to see him soon at Christmas. We'll see your parents soon too. He shrugged. They're actually stopping somewhere to go skiing. Wow. Danny blinked in surprise. You mean you won't be going with them? She looked at the track field, her cheeks blushing. Well, they're already traveling, so it was easier for them to stop at the resort, and then they'll see me after Christmas. Danny couldn't believe she wouldn't be with her parents on Christmas. At least Danny had his mom home all the time with him and his brothers. He suddenly felt really bad for Daisy. Aaron was so wrong about her. He wasn't snobby. He just didn't have a lot of friends, and she hardly even had parents home with her. Danny understood how much he missed Dad, and when he was away, to have both parents gone so often had to be really tough. Maybe Danny was Daisy's only friend. He didn't really see her talking to other kids at school. Daisy looked at him a little shyly for the first time. I mean, at least I have my interest in tattoos to keep me busy. And now I have you to talk with, right? Yeah, of course. You can count on me anytime. When you need me, I'll be there. Feeling of pride loomed in his chest. In a way, Daisy needed him, and he decided to then and there that he would take the responsibility of being her only friend very serious. She smiled. Great. Let's think of something we can get next. Then he hesitated, but only for a second. He told her he wanted to take a break, but considering his type and of body art made her happy. Was willing to get a little more to help her keep her mind off her parents not coming home for Christmas. As her only friend, he had to try and make her happy. Oh boy, that's dangerous. Okay, he told her as they started across the track field. Help me think of ideas for my next one. Danny's next design was of a hummingbird because Daisy liked them so much. He prepared his time by stashing old towels and garbage bags under his bed and in his room for easier cleanup. Unfortunately, the pain wasn't getting any easier to endure. In fact, it felt even worse with each cutting the bots performed. His heart felt like it wanted to pound right out of his chest. His body would tremble and sweat as the blood dripped out of his body. And when the cutting was stopped, he was super exhausted. He hadn't been able to get up to patch himself for at least 50 minutes. Sorry, I expected a patch up there. But just to patch himself, okay? I never heard that. But he was able to get through it, knowing Daisy would love the design so much. Being with Daisy made him feel noticed and wanted, something he hadn't felt in a while, not since Johnny was born. He knew his parents loved him, but being with Daisy felt different. She made him feel needed in some weird way, and she had his nerves tingle whenever he was with her. He'd never felt like that before, and he wanted to hold on to that feeling as long as he could. The next day he took her again to the far corner of the track field, so no one could see or hear what they were talking about. He started to feel like Blake Billing in the graphic novels he liked to read, with an alternate persona. This time he had the hummingbird etched onto his other shoulder. Daisy gasped, "Danny, I love it. You're the coolest. No one has ever done something so unique for me before." So people have done things for you before. I wonder if this is a repeat offender here. We'll see. Daisy clasped her fingers together and actually hopped up in excitement. Daisy's admiration and joy sipped through Danny like a spurt of sugar. "I'm so glad you like it. Oh my gosh, you are like my coolest friend I've ever had." Danny envisioned himself jumping for joy and performing a bunch of cartwheels in his head. For a girl like Daisy to praise him was like catching a rainbow. "Do you think you can do one on me?" she asked out of the blue. Danny's thrill faded away as he slowly placed the gauze back on his shoulder and dropped the sleeve of his shirt. "Oh, no, it's really hard to do and pretty painful. I can take it. I'll get a small one, like the star on my wrist. Come on. It'll be really cool." "No," Danny said a little too sternly. "I can't, Daisy." "Why not?" He shook his head adamantly. "I just can't." "Oh, fine." Daisy looked away at the track field and crossed her arms. "Be that way." There was a moment of silence, and she glanced at her nails. "Well, I have to go. I forgot I had something to do. I forgot I had told someone I would meet with them." Danny's stomach pitched as panic set in. "Wait, Daisy." He reached out awkwardly for her, but didn't touch her. "You're meeting someone else?" When she just shrugged, and he went on, "I mean, it's hard enough to do this to myself. I'm not ready to work on others. I'm not there yet, and if you know what I mean. What I go through, it's not easy at all. It's pretty complex." Daisy turned back to him, her eyes downcast. "Yeah, I guess I get it. You just have to wait a little while," he fibbed. He didn't really know what else to say, but he didn't want her to walk away upset with him. He finally had Daisy Ceylan's attention. Would do anything to keep her as his friend. If Daisy didn't want to be his friend anymore, it would crush him into tiny bits. She nodded and met his gaze. "But when you are ready, let me know. I want to be the first one to get your work, okay?" Danny relaxed a little. "Sure, definitely, when I'm ready," which in reality he'd never be. But at least she still wanted to hang out with him, which might not be a good thing. Maybe being crushed in little bits is not the worst thing that can happen. Worst thing would probably be inner bleeding. She gave a small smile. "Okay, let's talk about your next one." "Yeah, so who else were you going to meet?" "Oh, just some kid. No one important." "Ah, is that manipulation station I smell here?" I don't know." Later after school on the walk home, Aaron would barely look at Danny, let alone talk to him. And Aaron always wanted to talk. Danny knew he was still upset about Daisy ditching him, and Danny ditching him at lunch and to spend time with Daisy. It was a chilled breeze blowing in the dark clouds, and Danny wondered if it was going to rain soon. But he doubted Aaron wanted to talk about the weather. He pulled the pencil from his ear and started to tap his palm with it. Aaron, I know you're upset about me spending my lunches with Daisy. I told you to do whatever you want, Aaron muttered. I know, it's just I wanted you to understand. I like her and it feels good that she wants to hang out with me. I want you to understand. I get it. You have a girlfriend now. Danny's eyes widened as he slipped the pencil back on the top of his ear, and he smiled at the potential idea of being Daisy's boyfriend. What? No, Daisy is not my girlfriend. Hopefully one day. I mean, we're just friends. We talk about tattoos and stuff. Aaron shook his head. That's what I don't get. Why are you so into tattoos all of a sudden? I mean, you like art, but you like graphic novels and designs, illustrations. Then Daisy Sandland comes along and you change what you like. I haven't changed. I'm still me. I just like tattoos now. Aaron shook his head. She's just using you. Danny frowned. What do you mean? Using me for what? Danny frowned. She doesn't have any friends because she's so stuck up, and everyone look around school thinks so, except you. She's using so she's not such a loner. Once someone better or cooler comes along, she'll dump you. It's not true, Aaron. Daisy isn't like that. And just because I hang out with her doesn't mean you're not my best friend anymore. Aaron didn't say anything as he stopped at the corner where they split up. So I'll see you tomorrow? Danny asked him hesitantly. Aaron staring down at the ground. Maybe. Then he turned and took off for home. Danny felt bad again, watching Aaron walk away, swinging his suitcase. It isn't true what he said about Daisy, Danny told himself. It's not using someone when the person wants to hang out with you, right? And encourages you to get tattoos. Not at all questioning how he's doing it or if his parents know. Well. Then his phone pinged with a text. It was Daisy. She wanted him to draw a tattoo of a black cat. Danny smiled as he headed home. Anything for you, Daisy. That is well written right there. First in denial. It's not using someone if they just want to hang out. And she pings like, draw this. Anything for you, Daisy. Right. I think this story is not gonna end well. But that's just the feeling I'm getting from the vibes. Danny drew the cat design in a sketchbook. This time, he shaded the drawing in with all black. Daisy will love this one, he thought. Satisfied? It was like with each body modification. Daisy was drawn more and more to him, and he to her, connecting them in a way he never thought possible. It was like he couldn't get enough time with her. He could feel himself wanting to please her more each day. There was a knock on his bedroom door. He wasn't sure why, but he slammed his sketchbook shut and called out, "Yeah?" The door opened, and his mom came in with some folded laundry. "Danny, you did some of your own wash?" She had a pleased smile on her face. Brought this on. "Oh," he said, as his face heated. Blood. No, sorry. Yeah, I got some, paint on them and didn't want them to stain." He looked down at the carpeted floor. It was speckled with various colors, and he suddenly spotted a drop of blood. Oh no. He looked quickly at his mom, but she wasn't looking at the floor. "Good call, hon. Thanks for saving me the work. Next time, you can put a few more pieces in the load so it's not so small, yeah?" "Sure." He nodded as his gut tightened with the fibs he was telling his mom. He hadn't really lied to her since he was little and didn't want to get in trouble for coloring on the walls with crayons. She patted his shoulder and he did his best not to cringe. Both shoulders were healing and still so sore. "You're a good boy, Danny," she said with a smile. "Never give me any trouble. Since you are being so helpful, I could use some help in the kitchen with dinner." "Sure, Mom." He released a breath when she let go of him. "I'll be right there." Once his mom walked out of his room, he fell to the ground and tried to wipe the drip of blood with his hand. The stain was dried, so he decided to spit on it. When he rubbed the spot with his open palm, he smeared a little and it didn't look like blood anymore. "It will have to do," he thought. Then he sprang to his feet and rushed out of the room to help his mom. He washed his hands and helped with the dinner salad, while the boiling pasta and cooked the sauce for the spaghetti. A short while later, they all sat down for the family dinner with his brothers. Then he listened to Bobby take over the conversation about school and how his teachers loved him, just like always. "Of course they love you, hon," Mom told Bobby. "You're such a good and helpful student." Bobby smiled, and Danny rolled his eyes. His brother caught him and narrowed his eyes at Danny. Mom's phone rang. "Oh, it's Daddy." She answered the call and clicked on the speaker. "Hi, hon. We're all here finishing up dinner." "Hey, kids," Dad greeted him. "Hi, Dad," Bobby said. Addy," Johnny shouted. "Hi, Dad," Danny greeted him. "What's new with everyone?" Dad asked. "Danny has a crush on a girl at school," Bobby shouted, his shoulders shaking with a quiet laugh. Danny's eyes widened in shock. His face went hot. "Shut up, Bobby." "You like someone, Danny?" his mom asked. "That's so sweet." It's normal, but sure. "No," Danny yelled, ready to fling spaghetti at his brother. But he was pretty sure he'd get busted for that. "Yeah, he does," Bobby went on. "He was asking me for advice, wanting to know how to get her to notice him. So being a good big brother, I told him." "Oh, really? You're an expert, are you, Bobby?" Mama asked with a smile in her voice. "You remember I had a girlfriend in 9th grade? Nancy Dawson." Lasted a week, as I recall," Dad said, also with a slight lint in his voice. "Anyway," Bobby said, "I felt I was qualified enough to help out my little brother. All Danny could do was deny it even happened, although that was completely true. He had wanted to talk to his dad about Daisy one-on-one. He had wanted to be the one to tell him, not his selfish older brother, who had to take the spotlight at all the time, even when it didn't have anything to do with him. Should have never told him anything." "Aw, how middle boys growing up, Pat," his mom said, giving Danny a funny look. "Bobby has a big mouth and he needs to shut up," Danny yelled. "Danny, come on," his mom scolded. "Be nice." "It's okay, Danny," his dad said through the phone. "It's natural to have crushes. You're growing up, son. I bet she's a nice girl. Name's Daisy." Bobby spat out. Danny's back teeth ground together. "Well, can anyone tell me when Bobby is finally going to grow up?" Angry, he shoved back from the table, grabbed his plate, and stormed into the kitchen. His face was so hot, and his chest felt tight. He scraped off his plate with his fork, set them in the sink, and stormed to his room. He closed the door and locked it, then yanked open his sketchbook. He stared at the cat drawing, and his nostrils flared. "I want this cat on my stomach." Oy. Terrible, terrible idea. Why? The bots got to work immediately. Danny kneeled over and fell to the floor onto his knees as the tiny knives dug into his skin. "Ah," he moaned. His body began to tremble and shake as the pain increased and increased. Body poured out of his stomach, and he rolled onto his back as he curled up with the pain. What's happening? Cutting was even worse. He wanted to scream, but he covered his mouth as tears ran down his face. Make it stop, make it stop. A couple of torturous minutes later, the bots finally finished. Danny's shoulders were heaving and his nose was running. He wiped at his face and snot stuck to his hand. Ugh. He sat up carefully, and it seemed like more blood pooled out of his gut onto his jeans. Oh wow. Something was seriously wrong. He carefully lifted his shirt, and a red blob of something fell onto his lap. Danny flinched in surprise. Gross, what is that? He carefully picked up the blob with his fingers as his eyes widened. It was the cat he'd drawn. Oh. They are progressively carving more and more. This is a rough story. The bots had cut out an entire piece of flesh from his stomach. The flesh was thin and flabby. He started to shake as he raised his other hand to his bleeding stomach. Oh no, too far, he murmured as he grew lightheaded. I've gone too far. He grabbed some of the old hand towels and a garbage bag from under his bed and started to clean himself up. He threw all the bloody red towels in the bag and looked at the flesh carving of his stomach. It looked as if someone had used a cookie cutter, the shape of a cat, on his skin. Luckily, it hadn't been too deep, or he wouldn't know what he would do. He threw the piece of flesh in the bag and then slipped out of his bloody clothes and threw them into the garbage bag as well. There was no way he could get all the blood out of them without someone noticing. Felt really off, weak. When he stood up to get some fresh clothes, black dots flashed in front of his eyes. He balanced out his arms so he wouldn't fall over and faint. Probably lost too much blood. I'm okay, he whispered. I can handle this. It's just a little too far this time. Lesson learned. It's just gonna get worse, isn't it? Now he knew when he blacked out the entire design, the bots cut the entire thing out of his body. Good to know. He slowly dressed in some sweats and stuffed the garbage bag deep into the closet to throw away tomorrow. Then he heard his mom call out to get ready for bed. Dizzy, Danny fell to his bed, holding his spinning head. He just needed a minute to rest before he bandaged himself up. He couldn't get up for the next hour. The next morning, Danny forced himself to walk to school. As cold air puffed from his mouth. It had ended up raining the night before, and the sidewalks and streets were dotted with puddles. He felt really under the weather, weak and tired. He hadn't felt like getting up in the morning, but when his mom called for everyone to get out of bed, he got up anyway. His stomach was empty because the sight of the breakfast tarts made him gag, so he hadn't eaten them. He just tossed them in the garbage and covered them up so his mom wouldn't know. When Danny reached the corner to meet Aaron, his best friend wasn't there. Danny was surprised and a little hurt. Was he ditching him because he was mad? Maybe he'd hurt Aaron's feelings. Danny wasn't sure how he'd felt if it had been Aaron who wanted to hang out with someone else. But he would have at least tried to grasp how Aaron felt. Aaron wasn't even trying. Why couldn't Aaron understand how Daisy made him feel? How she gave him so much of her attention and admiration, something he rarely got from anyone else. Yeah, Danny didn't know if it was only for his special body art from the bots. But still, he didn't care. All he cared about was being with Daisy and making her happy so he could feel good. Danny figured he would make amends with his best friend eventually. Hopefully before something else happens. Maybe he could buy him something as a peace offering, like his favorite candy bar or something. They were best friends after all. He had to forgive him, right? walked the rest of the way to school, shivering from the cold. It was as if he couldn't get warm, even though he wore an extra rain jacket over his sweatshirt. When he reached the school grounds, he pulled out the garbage bag from his backpack and threw it into the dumpster in the parking lot. His breaths were fast and he felt exhausted just from throwing the bag into the bin. He walked into school to find Daisy for him at his locker. There was still no sign of Aaron. "Danny, look," she told him excitedly. "It's a body art expo in town. Can you believe it? We have to go." Danny glanced at the flyer Daisy waved in front of his face. "Oh wow, looks really cool," he told her. But she was making him dizzy waving the flyer around. "It's tomorrow. Will your mom let you go?" "Well, it's Saturday. She shouldn't say no since we're also starting our holiday break." Although he wasn't sure his mom would let him go to a tattoo expo with a bunch of strange adults. He might have to think of another plan in order to get out of the house for a couple of hours. "Danny," she said suddenly, studying his face. "You're so pale." Danny nodded, a little embarrassed. "Yeah, it's from... I know. And it's so cool, Danny. It just shows how dedicated you are to body art." I wouldn't call it that. "I really admire that about you." You do?" Danny blinked. "You think I'm dedicated to massacring myself?" "Yeah, I think so." "Oh, not asking me, are you?" She smiled at him and touched his hand. "I know so." Danny actually felt a flutter in his heart. He swallowed hard. "Thanks, Daisy. You're the best." Daisy tossed her hair with a smile. "Thanks. So did you draw the cat tat?" He nodded, mesmerized by the fact that Daisy had actually touched his hand. "Can't wait till you get that one on you." He laughed nervously. Yeah, can't wait. Anything for you, Daisy." "Hey, Mom, is it okay if I go to Aaron's today? He wants to hang out." "No, he doesn't. We haven't been able to for a while." Then he shifted on his feet. His pulse was fluttering from lying. It was Saturday morning and Danny and his brothers were officially on holiday break from school. Mom was busy washing the breakfast dishes. She was in sweats and a sweatshirt, and her brown hair was pulled back in a bun. She glanced at Danny. "Are his parents going to be home?" Danny nodded. "Yeah, of course." "That should be okay." She squinted her eyes at him. "Danny, you're awfully pale. Are you still not feeling well? Do we need to make an appointment for a checkup?" No. Yes, you definitely need a checkup. More than that, I think. You know, the sun hasn't been out in days," which was true. The weather had been cold and overcast for a couple of weeks. "Okay, but try not to stay too long. You look like you could use some rest, hon." "Sure, Mom." Yeah, Danny needed rest. A lot of it. He'd stood in his pajama shorts in front of the bathroom mirror that morning in complete shock. He hardly recognized himself. His body was carved up in 4 places with different designs that were still healing with red and itchy scabs. There was even bruising around some of the recent designs. His face was super pale, and he had dark circles under his eyes. His cheeks and gut looked sunken in. He wasn't sure how much more he could keep cutting into his skin without getting really sick. "I think you're already sick. You know what I mean?" When he met Daisy at the body art expo, he'd have to tell her he couldn't do it anymore, or that he had to at least take a break. A body art expo, where a bunch of people probably have full body tattoos. You are putting yourself in a really bad situation, you know that? Oh well. But there was a little voice inside of him that told him his greatest fear. And she won't be friends with you anymore. Mom's cell phone rang. She turned off the faucet and dried her hands with a dish towel. "What's that?" She answered her cell phone. "Hey, hon, how you doing?" "What?" Her eyes brightened. That's wonderful. When's the flight? She glanced at the clock on the wall. Oh, that's soon. The boys will be thrilled. I gotta go and get us ready. She laughed. Yes, yes. See you soon, hon. She clicked off the phone with a big smile. Boys, good news. Dad's coming home early. Bobby and Johnny rushed into the kitchen. What's going on? Bobby asked. Dad surprised us with an early flight. He's going home. He's coming home today. We have to all drive to the airport and to get him. Let's get ready to go. Hurry, hurry. All right, Bobby shouted, while Johnny started screaming in excitement as he ran to get ready. While Danny was happy, he was also torn. He told Daisy he'd go to the expo with her, but he wanted to see his dad too. He disappointed Daisy. She'd be so mad at him. Yeah, because she wouldn't understand. She might not even speak to him again. Panic clawed in his gut at the idea. No, he couldn't disappoint her. He didn't even want to think about not having Daisy in his life. He was her only friend, after all. In a way, it was as if she only had Danny to depend on. You are reading into this really far. Even though he wanted to go with family, he'd been able to see his dad when they both got home. Daisy only had her nanny to go home to. Danny followed his mom to her bedroom before she closed the door. Mom, I'm not going to go out with you guys to pick up Dad. Her eyes widened. What? You haven't seen your father in 3 weeks. I know. He swallowed hard. It's just I promised Aaron, and I don't want him to be upset with me. Oh, I think he would understand. Aaron's a good friend. Maybe, but I'll see Dad when he gets home. Is that okay? She cupped his chin. You sure, hon? For some reason, his throat thickened. Yeah, I'll see him soon. Jinxing it. It'll only be a couple of hours. Okay. She smiled. I'm so excited he's coming home early. Danny smiled. Me too. Danny rushed over to meet Daisy at the entrance of the tattoo expo. He was running late because he had to wait till his mom and brothers left the house, since he had to walk in the opposite direction of Aaron's house and take a bus to the body art expo at the town conference center. He hoped Daisy wasn't mad at him for being late, but his brothers were driving him crazy as usual, singing a song that was a party pooper for not coming with them. Bobby was so immature and Johnny kept singing along with him. There you are, Daisy shouted at him after he ran through the parking lot to get to the main entrance of the building. I was beginning to think you were standing me up. Danny had to catch his breath. No, never. He swallowed and realized his mouth was dry. Sorry, something came up at home. But I'm here now. Let's go in. Daisy's annoyance fell away when she pulled out the neon yellow wristbands. Okay, here's yours. It's going to be so cool, Danny. I'm really excited. Kept thinking about it all night. So did I, Danny thought, maybe for different reasons. All he could think about was being with her. Yeah, there we go. Danny slipped on his wristband and took a deep breath. Yeah, I can't wait to see all the different styles of artists. Me too. Daisy offered her hand, and Danny's eyes widened. He smiled at her, wiped his damp hand on his sweatshirt, and took her hand in his. It felt petite and warm. Daisy was actually holding his hand. Daisy really liked him as much as he liked her. It felt that. He couldn't wait to draw their hands together, just like this. He walked in, holding the girl of his dreams' hand. He was the luckiest kid in the world. Daisy scanned everything inside the large conference center. She'd never been to the Body Art Expo before, and there was so much excitement, so much creative energy. An actual punk rock band played loud music on stage. People of all ages walked around, some with tattoos on their arms, necks, and some even on their faces and shaved heads. She was mesmerized, impressed. One day, She might have her entire body tattooed. She wondered what her parents would think about that. They probably wouldn't even care, though. They were always busy with their jobs and doing fun, grown-up things. It was like they didn't have time for Daisy at all. Who cared anyway? Look where she was. She was doing what made her happy for a change. People were getting tattooed in booths. The buzzing of the tattoo guns filled the air. Others were getting facial piercings. And a bunch of booths sold t-shirts, sweatshirts, and beanies. Another sold lotions to take care of your body art. There were people selling tattoo-style paintings and various foods and drink booths. And there were so many different styles of artists. She couldn't tell which artist she liked the best. This was almost the greatest day of her life. Would have been even more wonderful if she was actually 18 and could get a tattoo instead of depending on her parents' permission. One day. Have you seen anything as cool as this before? She asked Danny. Danny shook his head. No, it's pretty amazing. Let's look over here. She pulled Danny towards an artist selling tattoos and artwork. The artist had 2 eyebrow piercings with both arms covered with full tattoo sleeves. It was kind of cute for an old guy. Hey there, you kids looking to get a tat? The tattoo artist asked. Well, I have one already. She let go of Danny's hand to show the artist the star tattoo under her wrist. But I can't get another without my parents. The artist nodded his head in understanding. Ah, not 18 yet. She rolled her eyes. Such a silly law. I mean, I can make my own decisions anyway, you know? Well, if you can't get a tattoo, check out some of my artwork for sale. I have a lot of stickers and prints. Daisy gazed around, excited she had a real tattoo artist's attention. You are super talented. If I could, I would get one of your tattoos right on my arm. The tattoo artist smiled. Thanks. Which designs do you like the best? Danny cleared his throat, but Daisy ignored him. Couldn't he see she was having a serious, mature conversation here? When he cleared his throat again, she turned to him. Danny, I'm really thirsty. Could you get me some soda? She knew Danny was always trying to please her. First, that's why she hung around him. And for the cool and different body art he was able to do on himself. But she found out he was a nice friend to talk with too. Oh sure, he told her. Why don't you come with me so you can pick it out? Oh no, it's okay. I like grape. Danny's shoulders sagged. Okay. I'll be right back. She waved him off. Take your time, there's no rush. She batted her eyelashes at the tattoo artist. So which tattoo do you think would look good on me? Danny attempted to hurry back to Daisy. It had actually taken longer than he thought to get the grape soda. First, he couldn't find a booth that carried grape. Then, when he finally did, there had been a long line. He hoped he could find her quickly in the crowd. However, it didn't take long to find Daisy, because she was still at the same tattoo booth with the same creepy tattoo guy. Danny's steps slowed. She wanted to talk to him so much. She'd come to the expo with Danny, not the tattoo guy. It was actually their first official outing together, and she was giving all her attention to someone else. Familiar feeling of being a nobody, someone unnoticed, came back in full force, like a ton of bricks. He thought Daisy was different. He thought they had a good relationship, one that lasted like a week or 4 days maybe. One that was growing every day. He understood her. He kept doing skin designs because that was what she wanted. He knew how she felt being ignored by her parents. He was the one who hung out with her, who became her only friend. But maybe she only really cared about the skin designs all along. Had Aaron been right about her? Had Daisy just been using him until someone better came along? No, this couldn't be happening. His heart felt like it was literally breaking. He should just go home. He should just leave her with the creepy tattoo artist. The old guy could be her only friend. Then he continued to walk straight to Daisy. He handed her the soda, ready to leave and walk away. His hand trembled. Here. No thanks, she said, barely looking at him, as she took the soda can. The tattoo artist was showing her his book. It's taken me years to hone my style and build up a portfolio I'm proud of. Why'd you choose all these tattoos on your arms? I wanted each tat to mean something. I didn't want it to be one of those kids who gets tats just to have them, you know? Daisy nodded eagerly, her eyelashes fluttering. That's so cool. That's how I feel too. And something snapped in Danny. All the attention she'd given to Danny was now given to this random guy. Danny had lost her in a blink of an eye. No. What are you going to do next? Daisy asked him. That was what she asked Danny. Felt his teeth ground together, his hands fisted at the sides. Danny couldn't take it anymore. You know what I want next? Danny asked rather loudly, interrupting the conversation. The artist and Daisy turned their attention to him. Yeah, what do you want, kid? He asked. Danny blew out air from his nose and his nostrils flared. I want all of your designs. Don't even know if he only has tattoos on the arms. Daisy frowned. Danny. The tattoo artist scoffed. You couldn't afford it, kid. Excuse me for a moment. I got another customer. But their voices were drowned out by the sudden pain that began knifing into Danny's arm and another on his leg. His skin began to sting and drip with blood. He started to tremble and shake it as he stared at Daisy, experiencing the excruciating slicing into his skin. Then, when one tattoo was complete, felt another one being cut into another area, this time on his chest. Daisy's eyes widened as she watched sections of his clothes beginning to bloom with red. What's happening? Daisy asked, confused. Daisy stepped back as blood dripped onto the floor from Danny's shoes. She shook her head as horror played across her features. Danny? Isn't that what you wanted? Danny reached out a hand dripping with blood. Daisy's eyes widened. She turned and ran. Daisy ran wildly through the crowd. She didn't understand what was happening with Danny. All she knew was that she was completely freaked out. She pushed through a couple of adults and maneuvered around informational tables. She needed a place to hide. Maybe if she hid, Danny would give up and just go home. She peered over her shoulder, but Danny was still after her. Her heart beat rapidly in her chest. She found a hallway off to the side. There was a sign that read, "No trespassing." But she didn't care. She needed to get away from Danny. She ran as fast as she could. Isn't there security at expos? Couldn't you just be like, hey, this guy needs help? Because he really does. She wasn't exactly a good runner, and her breaths were gushing out of her mouth. She felt her face flash hot as she tried a couple of doors in the hallway, only to find them locked. She hid at the doors, frustrated that she couldn't get in. Danny stumbled down the hallway towards her and she screamed. There was even more blood on him. Some dripped down his face and neck. What's wrong with him? Someone open the door, she cried. Please. Daisy, stop. Danny yelled at her. She rushed to the next door and twisted a handle to find it unlocked. She pushed through and rushed inside. She flicked on the light switch and slammed the door shut. The door closed and locked it. She was in a little office with a desk, a few chairs. She stepped back, trying to get her breathing under control. She heard Danny stumble closer. Daisy, he moaned from behind the door. A tear ran down her cheek. She was so scared. She wanted her mom and her dad and Miss Gladys. Don't run. Away. He tapped slowly on the wood. Tap, tap, tap. Please. Daisy. Just go away, Danny. I mean it. She shouted at him through the barrier. I don't want to see you right now. Daisy, open the door. She heard him sniffle and cry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Daisy wiped her own tears and stepped closer to the door to listen, since his voice seemed to fade in and out. Like you, so much. I wanted you to feel the same. Daisy's eyes widened. She stared at the door. I tried to get you to notice me with the drawings in your locker. That had been him? Daisy silently questioned. You really liked me all this time? Then with the skin designs you liked so much? Danny didn't say anymore, still scared. She waited another moment. Danny? She leaned her head against the door. Are you still there? No answer. What should I do? She wondered. She ran her hand through her sweaty hair. Maybe Danny needed her help. Maybe she should get him home or to a hospital or something. Gosh, she never had to worry about someone else before. She liked to act like she knew it all, but she knew she didn't know everything. She was also just a kid. Taking a breath, she braced herself, unlocking the door and slowly opening it. She looked down at the floor to see a puddle of blood. She slapped a hand over her mouth to hold back another scream. She leaned forward, looked left and then right to the hall. There was no sign of Danny. Danny? She looked down at the blood once again, and she spotted a trail of red leading down the hallway. She took a breath and carefully stepped over the puddle. Danny was obviously sick. Yeah, she was scared, but he was her he was her friend. She needed him to help him. Somehow. Daisy walked down the hall, frowning, following the drips of blood and a few bloody footprints. She spotted smeared handprints on the wall leading down another hallway. She found his shoes on the floor spotted with blood. The lights were dim, and she couldn't see very clearly. Danny, I'm sorry, she called out. I won't run anymore. I just got a little scared, that's all. Where are you? She stepped slowly down the walkway. You should get home to your mom's so you can get help, okay? Her foot kicked something on the ground, and she recoiled, uncertain what it could be. When she was certain it wasn't moving, she leaned down closer. What is that? She murmured. It looked a little folded up over and was a strange pinkish and off-white color. She rolled it flat with the tip of her tennis shoe. It was in the shape of a daisy. Daisy blinked, oddly flattered. There was a funny smell to the flower, and she couldn't figure out what it was made of. She stepped over it and spotted another piece of something strange on the floor. This time, it was in the shape of a little heart. It was also smeared with blood. Daisy tilted her head as she looked at the texture of the heart, then back at the flower. She shook her head. It couldn't be. Her pulse started to quicken and her stomach felt funny. She put a hand on her gut and walked forward to the next object on the floor. This one was in the shape of a crescent moon. Hesitantly, she moved forward, not willing to accept what she was seeing and not able to stop herself. There was a little voice in her head that told her, turn around, go back, run away. But then she spotted Danny's bloody shirt thrown on the floor. She kept going. The next bloody shape she found on the ground was a rocket ship, then more. A little cutouts of stars, a deer, a hawk, a tiger, a guitar, music notes, smiley faces, or flowers, all smeared with blood. Now it seemed like the shapes were turning a darker pink. No, she kept shaking her head, telling herself what she was actually seeing, couldn't be real. She must be dreaming. It felt like she was living a real life nightmare. Suddenly, the blood trail widened. There were more of Danny's clothes. Daisy started to tremble. That is an awful lot of blood. Someone can't lose this much blood unless more clumps of shapes were on the floor, this time bigger, leading up to the entrance of the dark room. These were more heart shapes, large and oddly maroon and possibly purple. It almost looked like these shapes had been pierced together. That odd smell was strong. She gagged. Daisy slapped a hand to her nose and mouth so she wouldn't throw up. She found Danny's cell phone on the floor next. It was smeared with blood and it was vibrating. She didn't pick it up, but she could see on the screen there were missed calls from his dad and mom. Danny, she whispered this time. She was even more scared than she had been before. She was trembling so bad as she stepped in the doorway. She reached out a shaky hand along the wall to search a light switch. Are you there? He felt the switch and flicked it on. There lay a small clump of something in a red puddle. Hesitantly, Daisy stepped closer. And as a realization dawned, she opened her mouth to release a blood-curdling scream. The final clump in the center of the room was a silent and still human heart. And that's the end of Bleeding Heart. So yeah, quite an interesting story. Bleeding Heart, I like that. I like that title for this story. Because it's like his heart is bleeding and that he is cutting away little parts of himself in the attempt to, let's say, win someone else's heart, I suppose. And when that fails, well, what's left is a silent and still human heart as the story ends. It's the last story of the Tiger Rock book, and well, there's still the epilogue, which I think I'm gonna read all together in like one big video. Well, I'm still looking into that because there are like 7 books in Tiger. No, 8. 8 books? 8 books in Tales from the Pizzaplex, and I think the epilogue is all connected, right? So I guess I might still have to wait for B7 2 to get the last epilogue. Or just make the video now and then just tag on the last epilogue, make a new video together, delete the old one. I don't know yet. Anyway, thanks for listening, for bearing with me reading these stories. Bye.